Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the podcast you come to when you're finally ready to take fantasy hockey seriously. My name is Nate Groot Nibbelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy, and in this episode, Blake and I are going to break down the most puzzling players league-wide as determined by the Apples and Ginos Discord server. Let's get it. All right, welcome on in, everyone. We are back with one last final edition of Puzzling Players. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
Feeling good, buddy. Feeling very good. This is it's such a fun time of year when I know people are still going, but I'm not. And I'm kind of just excited. Like you can sort of exhale a little bit, And another thing I love too is our Discord is popping off with all the listeners and our YouTube and Twitter and everything. People that won the chip. So shout out to you, our listeners. Thank you so much for everything you do. I'm stoked you got those chips. Hit us up with more. Hit us up in the comments if you won here. Let us know how you did, because that's getting my juices flowing. I got to tell you that, Nate.
I'm just chalk it up to the list of many things that get
I'm a virile man.
flowing.
Oh yeah,
get some feeling his plums. Get some doing a lot
that
of other
happens.
stuff. We got with the chance in here. Finals matchup. Let's go. Already down to a tuck goal. Yeah, that can happen. And we got Breadman. Progress update. Now that I won 2 championships, placed 4th out of 20 in another league. Almost have a girlfriend now.
Buddy. Oh, man. You know what? That if we could do that for him, I think that would really be a nice service here. Don't you think, Nathaniel?
Yes. I really doubt our ability to play wingman from afar here, but
speak for yourself, Nate.
Okay. Put in a lot of faith in your own abilities there, I will say, but
when you know, you know.
All right. There you have it. All right, let's get one more comment and we'll dig in. Rear Admiral Meow Meow is back in here. Ahoy, Nate. I'm in the final of my league this week, going for a three-peat. Honestly, I don't have any questions. Wanted to say thanks for all your insight through the season. Cheers. Cheers to you, sir. You right honorable Admiral. You. All right, let's continue with the puzzling players. Jimmy Snuggerud was the most requested player this week. 4 points in his last 5. Obviously, 3 of those assists come in last night for St. Louis. I know there were some people who that actually did swing their matchup in their favor, picking up Jimmy Snuggerud, so love to see that. 18 minutes average time on ice here, 26 shots per 60, 27th individual expected goals for 4 per 60, and 10th in on-ice expected goals 4 per 60. I think it's less a question of can Jimmy Snuggerud keep this up at this point, and more a question of when we get to next year, how high are we taking him?
I think we're going to get him at value. I really do, because it's still a lot of people are going to look at the end of season total, right? Which doesn't tell the whole story. This guy's, it's a great season. He's on a 54-point pace, but I think people will forget about this a little bit. There's going to be other guys they're excited about, but Jimmy Snugs, oh man, like maybe not, you know what, because he had a 3 assist Sunday there. Like those are guys you sometimes overdraft, hey, like he could win some matchups for people, but this guy's for real. He's legit. And I love that he's getting the opportunity he is, because, it's far-fetched, but St. Louis isn't out of the playoff picture at this point. They're right there, and he's getting like prime time deployment. He's being trotted out there as one of the best offensive weapons on this team. So that says a lot. And I despite the year that St. Louis has had, I still like the coaching there. I think it's a good offensive team with good players. And this line, maybe we'll talk about it in a little bit, but Rob Thomas, Jimmy Snugs, and Dylan Holloway, they've been cooking, and they've been cooking for a little while here. So I don't know. And Jimmy, I bet we'll still probably get him around pick 100 or later. That's sort of my initial thought here, but what do you think, Nate?
I think just because it's been a prolonged period and it's been at the most crucial time of year, that the public might be pretty wise to Jimmy Snuggerud come draft season next year. It might be a little bit of like a Dylan Gunther kind of situation where people got hyped to draft him next year. So we'll see. But I mean, yeah, maybe like Yahoo Public Leagues, he's going in your 10th round. That could definitely happen for sure. But I think in the more elite leagues, in the tuned in leagues, it might be a little bit harder to get Jimmy Snuggerud that late. I'll definitely be one I'm watching though, because I agree he should probably be going pretty early based on what they've got here. I think honestly, like you just look at this Thomas Holloway Snuggerud line, like when are they going to break that up? It's
Mhm.
just absolutely cooking. You've got very clearly defined roles for all these guys on that line, and it just works. Like why would they ever break that up? I don't see a good reason to. It's the one thing. I think it's the one thing. I mean, you could say Joel Hofer finally figuring out how to play net has been a big piece of that for them, but I think it's the number one reason why the Blues have gone on the run they have at the end of this year. So I would definitely anticipate having a fat old projection on all three of those guys going into next year based on this late season success. All right, Jason Robertson next up. 1 goal, 4 points in his last five, 22 minutes a night, 37 shots per 60, 53rd in individual expected goals for per 60, 116th in on ice expected goals for per 60. He's trended back down just a little bit to a 43 goal, 95 point pace on the season now. Still ranks 8th in shots per 60 on the season here, and first in individual and on ice expected goals for per 60. Tremendous year under the hood from Jason Robertson. What do you think this does for Robertson? Let's talk about the current situation. They're running out a true top line right now. Wyatt Johnston, Jason Robertson, Mikko Rantanen. Obviously, he's on the top power play there. Do you think that Robertson continues at this 95-point pace? Do you think he's got another hot streak in him before the end of the year? Do you think that they maybe start sitting some of these guys as they get closer to the playoffs, and if their matchups start to get a little bit more locked in? What do you think happens with Robertson for the rest of the year here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think that, yeah, he has cooled off, and that's been unfortunate. The timing, right? We're all in our playoffs, and like I had Robertson, I had Rantanen in a spot here in my finals, and they really didn't do a lot, and it was really frustrating because they were getting a ton of minutes. They're putting up some good chances, but I think it's Rantanen coming back. That's a big difference, right? I mean, they were really successful offensively, Robertson in particular, and Wyatt Johnson when Rantanen was out of the lineup. And not that they're worse with him in, but it's just like you bring in a guy of that gravity of Rantanen, like he needs puck touches. And yeah, I think they're kind of just finding their legs again with Rantanen in the lineup. And they've had a tough run here too. They played a really game Colorado team there last week, and it was just a really gross game. Yeah, like no chances whatsoever for two like really high octane teams. It was just a really gross kind of game to watch. But yeah, I think he'll bounce back. I think 95 points, 90 to 95 points sounds like a reasonable pace for him to continue on rest of season. Under the hood still looks good, like individual expected goals still hopping, and he's been that way all year. So just a great season for Jason Robertson. Hopefully you got him at value this year in draft season.
Yeah, I think you can definitely expect at least a 90-point pace rest of season. I don't see why you wouldn't get that. Dallas Stars still do have something to play for. They're 2 points up on the Wild, 5 games remaining for each team, and they're almost certainly going to be playing each other in the first round, and it's really just about home ice advantage. So they really do have something to play for here to close out the year, which is good news if you have Jason Robertson on your squad. So I think that you should be pretty set with Robertson the rest of the season. I think it'll be pretty interesting to see where he goes next year. I think you're probably looking at a turn kind of situation, 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range where he's most likely to go. And I'd be pretty comfortable taking him there, to be quite honest with you. And if he falls any later than that, I'd be extra happy to take him. This kind of underlying numbers, the true minutes that he's getting now, 20 minutes a night, even more in this recent stretch here. When they need stuff, they're leaning on him. I love to see all of that. I love to see him produce with Rantanen, away from Rantanen. That top power play is absolutely lethal. If they were a little bit better at even strength, then he could have even bigger numbers. I just think everything's lining up for Robertson to go on a run of multiple years. I think they'll figure out the contract there, and we should be looking at a really good next half decade at the very least for Jason Robertson. Kromarchenko next up, 5 points in his last five. just under 19 minutes average time on ice, 162nd in shots per 60, but up at 26th in individual expected goals for per 60, 85th in on ice expected goals for per 60. Marchenko, I mean, the Blue Jackets have really taken a beating here. They've lost 6 straight, but Marchenko has had a couple of multi-point games in there. It really hasn't been his fault. In this 6-game losing streak, let's do the quick math here. The 6-game losing streak, the Blue Jackets have scored a grand total of 10 goals, and Marchenko has been in on half of them. So I think he's doing his piece here. I don't think it's on him to figure this thing out any more than he already has. I will say, like, it is a little bit disappointing the season he had here. 74-point pace that he's on in the 71 games he's played. The underlines look terrific. They have all year, but I was kind of hoping for what we got a little bit at the beginning of the season, where it really looked like he might take that next step and be that 90-point kind of winger, and we never quite got that this year. I don't know. Maybe there's stuff. Dean Evison getting fired, new coach, like all the different stuff that happened with this team this year. They got hot for a bit. Now they cooled off. A lot of ups and downs throughout the season with the Blue Jackets. But maybe that's something that he should be able to take over if he wants to be a true and upper echelon player in this league. What are your thoughts, Blake?
Yeah, I think there's still some development that needs to happen here, and yeah, I think you called it as well. You get a coaching change in the middle of the season there. What we don't know what's going on there with Evanson, and then you get Bonus in here. Yeah, it's gonna make some changes. Yeah, and I just think Marchenko, it. We need to see another gear from this guy. I think I was with you on that. I don't remember my projection, but I think it was 80 to 90 points. It was in and around there. And Columbus has gone cold at the absolute worst time. And one of the things, like, they definitely got a new coach bump with Rick Bowness, but as of late, this team is not shooting the puck. It's really, really rough stuff. Like, they had a 10-shot game there against Carolina, a 16-shot game the next game of this 6-game losing streak. Like, you can't get it done that way. So I don't know. They might be kind of just on fumes here, and sort of that magic is gone with Rick Bowness, and they're sort of left with a team that's not quite ready to get over the hump. So that all said, I like the bones here of Marchenko. I like the bones of the line that he plays on. Like, who's he been playing with? It's Fantilli and Mason Marchment. Like, damn, that'll play, right? That's a line that should, all intents and purposes, be crushing on a nightly basis. So I like the future, but yeah, I think you're right. It's a mildly disappointing season for Marchenko, and I think moving forward, like this season, it could be a little bit of a slog for Marchenko.
Right, let's get back to the comments here. Thoughts on Landeskog? Droppable now that he's line 2. Power play 2 feels like Lehkonen is better and better use for a streamer spot. We could throw Landeskog in the sheet here, but what's your off the dome take on Gabriel Landeskog, Blake?
I love Colorado at 5-on-5. So, I'm not just dropping him willy nilly, but yeah, the ice time last little while here, not really good, right? That's hard to take. You're still getting some decent periffs, but yeah, I think he's droppable if you can get a player from a team with a better schedule, right? Or I just don't think you have to hold on to him, especially he's not getting power play 1. Like, yeah, it's a guy you can get off of if you need to.
Yep, totally agree there. Breadman asks, in a keep forever, which 4 are you keeping? Jack Hughes, J-Rob, Natchez, Werenski, Cutter, Leo, Matthew Tkachuk, Jarvis, Panarin, Fantilli,
Oh
12-team
my
league.
God.
Cats, goals, assists, power play points, shorthanded points, plus, minus, shots on goal, hits, blocks. Good grief. I mean, throw a rock and pick whichever one it hits. I think you'll be fine. I think Jack Hughes and J-Rob are must holds for me. I think Werenski fits that. And then it's kind of a tier cutter. Leo, Matthew Tkachuk, Panarin. I don't know. Do you feel safe with those top 3? I mean, Natchez you could definitely put in that range too. Um, I think Natchez. I mean, Natchez should be there, but for the Cats format too, like Kachuk obviously has some utility there. Cutter for the shots. Like, there's a lot of ways you can think about this. That is pretty tough. You got any wisdom here, Blake?
Yeah, I definitely like Jack Hughes, J-Rob. I think that makes some sense. When you got this much talent on a team, I'm interested in holding like sure things basically, or as closer to sure things. We know Cutter's amazing. We know Leo's amazing, but those guys are still developing, right? So I like, Cutter Gauthier had power play 2 for large portions of the year. So yeah, if they're kind of doing that thing, I think you can kind of take him out of there. Unfortunately, Matt Tkachuk to me is probably the guy that I would hold. Like it's been a really rough year. I think his value is pretty nuked, and people are sort of viewing him that way, but he was injured all year. Like he had a brutal injury. So, he's going to come back next year, probably play at a 90-point pace, get you some of those periffs you need. He's going to be on a much better team. Like Florida was without Barkov all year as well, and many other players. So Florida's going to be a completely different team next year, and Matt Tkachuk's going to bounce back. So I think I'd roll Hughes, J-Rob, Werenski, Matt Tkachuk. I like Werenski just because of the value over replacement there. He's the second best defenseman in fantasy for me.
Blake going against his guy, Marty Necas. You hate to see it.
I love Necas. Oh, God, what are you doing? Keep 5. Change the rules.
All right, Craig Cody. Guys, could we get your take on Washington players rest of season? They fit well into my schedule, but they looked terrible last night. Nate mentioned younger players may get better minutes now that they're out. Do you like any Caps forwards for the rest of the week? Like is a strong word regarding the Washington Capitals right now. It's pretty tough to watch what transpired yesterday and have any sort of confidence in anybody there moving forward. But that being said, like PLD getting basically top line minutes on the top power play, that's a look that I'm interested in for sure. Ryan Leonard is at least putting up some points here and there, so that's something you can think about as well. I think those would be the two for me right now. I think I would take PLD first and Ryan Leonard second, unless it's a bangers Cats kind of set up. What do you think, Blake?
You're just going to not even mention Alexei Protas and Little Pro. We got Little Pro getting called up to league. Ilya Protas. This guy's like 6'6". He's a freak.
Yeah, I mean, if Alexei Protas is out there 51% rostered, I doubt he is, but if he is, then yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think you're right. PLD getting that power play time, Ryan Leonard. Those are your huckleberries. But I mean, yeah, Washington, you could probably steer clear of them as a team. I mean, they don't even have a good schedule. So yeah, go somewhere else. Go take a ride with Tyler Toffoli, Jeff Gillooly. Oh yeah, he does that. He's very good.
Pecora, hey Nate and Blake, thanks for awesome content and helping me win my first championship. Congrats. Helpful content, not just for fantasy, but learning about hockey analytics. Best podcast out there. Cheers. We appreciate you. Thanks for being here and being here all year long. 1-2 out of my 2 leagues. Feel good about that. Thanks, guys. Good to hear it. Let's keep it going. Web PG 2 to 4 year projection. Nice versus Tuck in a dynasty league. It's keep 11 NHL and redraft. The rest with entry draft. I'm keeping both as 10th and 11th keeper, but have Frondell and one of McKenna or Stenberg. So I'll have to get rid of one, if not both, going forward. Light bangs, 0.2 hits and blocks with goals worth 3, assists 2, shots on goal 0.4. I think in a true dynasty, I would just go Nyes for the youth factor. Keep 11. Yeah, I still think I'm going Nyes there because you're probably hanging on to him. I think Nyes is better than what we saw this year. He has started to play better. I think he's gotten healthier in the last month or so here for the Leafs, and so he has started to play better again. So I do think he might actually be an undervalued asset next year in redraft, but I think that if it is a true decision, one versus the other, I'd go Nyes. Your thoughts, Blake?
Yeah. No notes there. I think you got to go Nyes. I love Alex Tuck, but in a keeper, you got to go with the younger guy with the higher upside.
All right, looking back to the start of the year, and notice guys like DeBrincat, Zibanejad, Scheifele, Stone, and Wilson were off my bingo card, scared of their efficiency, and didn't believe. Maybe you can tell me why. I think all of those are pretty different players to me, to be honest. I think DeBrincat had this in his range of outcomes. It wasn't my initial projection, but it was within the range of outcomes for me. Zibanejad, I think, was one of the biggest surprises, especially given how the season went for the Rangers, that he actually did well and maintained it all year long. I would be I would be a little bit concerned about his ability to do that again next year, but I also think that he is one of the few Rangers who actually mesh quite well with Mike Sullivan's system this year, and he's always been kind of a power play guy too, so he always kind of has that in his bag. So that's a little bit different. Shifley, I had no concerns about his efficiency. It has been pretty sustainable all his career. Stone has always just been a an injury concern, not a talent concern for me, especially on a loaded top power play there for Vegas. So I felt pretty confident that he would score points. Yeah, not to this level maybe, but definitely would score points and be undervalued in drafts as long as he stayed healthy. Tom Wilson, I think we projected him pretty close to where he's at right now. So I'm going to look that up, Blake, but do you have any other comments on these guys?
No, yeah, I wasn't. I wasn't really actively avoiding any of these players. Stone, I always actively avoid, but this year in particular, it's yeah. When he was healthy, this guy was really driving plays. So it's a good data point to remember. Like Stone is a huge piece of that Vegas power play, and when he was out, that power play went to crap. Like it was not even close to the same unit. So you got to shut up Mark Stone. I mean, his injury stuff aside, like he's a very valuable player, but you can still get him at value. I also want to shout out to Brinkett. Brinkett has had an unbelievable year. Like he might be one of the most like underrated players of this fantasy hockey season. A guy that no one's really talking about, but under the hood, the metrics, like in terms of the micro stats, this guy is popping off the page. He's doing every single thing he possibly can in terms of offensive generation, chance generation, and contribution, those type of things. He's played out of this world. So really shout out to DeBrincat. I hope he goes underrated again next year because that's a guy I'm absolutely going to be targeting.
All right. Tom Wilson, I had for 62 points, Payson for 70. I had him at 18 minutes, 45 seconds average time on ice. He's getting closer to 20 minutes a night. So
Nice.
that's pretty much the difference there, I think. Um, yeah, pretty close to the difference anyway. So I think I had relatively appropriately rated Tom Wilson coming into the year. Just didn't quite get the time on ice projection right there. Let's keep going. Four keepers in a Bangers Cats League. Who would you keep out of Panarin, Sanderson, Bouchard, Bratt, Raymond, and Barkov? I think I am going to let Barkov fall off this list for me. Just we've seen guys struggle in the year coming back from an ACL just a little bit. It's a huge injury, and it's a tough thing to come back from. Svechnikov, I think, had his worst year the year after the ACL, and now you're seeing him come back and be a little bit more effective a few years removed. Panarin, I think, is a no-doubter. Bouchard, I think, is a no-doubter, and that leaves you between Sanderson, Bratt, Raymond. I would probably keep Sanderson just because he's the only D on this list. I think you have to take Raymond over Bratt based on what we've seen this year. Anything you would change on that list there, Blake?
Damn it! I hate when we agree. Oh, it's unbelievable. But yeah, I think certainly in a Bangers Cats too. Like Raymond is going to get you those power play points as well. He's a really good player. So I agree wholeheartedly.
All right. Got Smith and Wenberg. Is Eklund or Chernyshov too many Sharks? Their schedule looks good, but their form is kind of stuttering. Would get them in for 4 games. I think that's probably the max that I would go is 3 of them, but I don't think it's necessarily too many. You are putting all your eggs in one basket, which is not a terrible thing for a single week elimination like your finals would be. Yeah, if you're going to go with one of them, I would go with Chernyshov. What would you say, Blake?
Yep, Chernyshov as well.
All right. 14-man, three-man keeper, ESPN Points League. Who are your 3 for next season? Brady, Matthew, Werenski, Wyatt Johnson. Thanks, guys. Been listening all year. Appreciate that. And adds Darlene as well.
Oh,
Darlene definitely has to be in there as the only defenseman. Oh no, you got Werenski. Okay, so that is a consideration. You could go in ESPN points. Brady's not as great there. I think for me, Matthew, Werenski, Darlene, final answer. Your thoughts, Blake?
oh, you're wild. You're going with the 2D. Yeah, it makes some sense. We saw what happened this year in draft season. Defense really dried up, and there was a huge gap in value there. That said, I'm going to go Matt Tkachuk, Werenski, and Wyatt Johnston. Yeah, that's how I'm rolling.
All right. Let's get back to the list here. Artemi Panarin, 2 goals and 6 points in his last 5, 21 minutes a night, 119 shots per 60, 84th individual expected goals for per 60, 43rd in on ice expected goals for per 60. A ho hum, another 90 plus point pace from Artemi Panarin. Yeah, I think what you see is what you get. I think he could have had an even better year if the Rangers hadn't been such an absolute tire fire at the start of the year. That's where most of the damage came from. I think probably you remove the first 10 games of the year and he's well over a 100-point pace. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it with Panarin for me. I think it's pretty open and shut. I'd be happy to draft him. I mean, I think we might even get him at value. I think there's going to be a lot of guys that people are going to be pretty hyped to pick next year. I think you might get Panarin in the late second next year, maybe even into the third if some people are underrating him, if they're starting to, if they believe that like the ghost of Jim Hiller is still around and they have
He's
some
not
kind of
dead, Nate.
tainted view of Artemi Panarin just based on the fact that he plays for the Kings. I don't think this is going to be the same Kings team last year. I think the coaching change was the sign of that they actually want to score some goals every once in a while. I think Panarin acquisition was also a sign of that. So, yeah, I think that Panarin I'd be pretty interested in next year.
Hell yeah, brother. He's, you know what's nice about Panarin in LA is he's getting big time minutes as he should, but that there wasn't a fall off there. So that gives me a lot of confidence going into next year that he'll be able to get up around 100 points again.
Yeah. And now with Panarin as well, I should say too, like we've seen it across multiple teams. He starts his career in Chicago, plays with Kane, has terrific chemistry there. You're like, okay, can he do it away from Kane? Goes to Columbus, is the guy, and can be the guy there. Goes to the Rangers, plays on some really good teams, and scores a ton of points there. Now he comes to Los Angeles and he fits in immediately. He's playing 21 minutes and he's scoring a bunch of points. It just makes sense to me. A couple of youngsters here that were requested: Porter Martone and Cole Hudson. Martone has 3 points in his first 4 games in the league, just under 17 minutes average time on ice, second in shots per 60, first in individual expected goals for per 60, 40th in on ice expected goals for per 60 in his first 4 games in the league. You love to see it from the kid. Let's start there, Blake. I've talked a little bit about Martone already. I've talked about how ridiculous his start was. He had 9 shots in his second NHL
Yep.
game. Like, he's doing the thing for sure. He looks confident out there. He looks like a grown man out there. He's always been a big kid, but it looks like he's got an NHL ready body already and ready to go.
Yeah, hell yeah. One thing I love to see when you get a young player in here that has offensive pedigree, he has a pathway to offensive minutes and opportunity. And Tocchet is giving him that. That's amazing, right? You love to see that. I mean, he's playing on the top line with Konechny and Christian Dvorak, and they're getting the biz. They're caving teams in out there in terms of Corsi 4. So you love to see that. Martone got that beautiful overtime goal the other night. Like, the Flyers are still in the playoff hunt. That's legendary stuff, to come up. I think sometimes when a young player comes up, they still have that same confidence from when they were in the lower level league. And that kind of just carries on into their NHL tenure, at least at the beginning, right? So you get a young guy like Porter Martone, like, let's say he helps the Flyers get into the playoffs. Like, I could see him being a force in the playoffs, maybe getting like 10 to 15 points, like something like that. So I'm a big fan of the player. It's nice to see what's going on here. It's not sustainable, right? I don't think that this is the type of player Porter Martone is, right? But things are breaking right. He's on a good line, and you just love to see those shots. Like I said, they're really caving in the other teams when Martone's on the ice. And yeah, he's played with men before. And I think that is definitely helping him. Obviously, if Tocchet's giving him minutes, he plays hockey the quote unquote right way. So you love to see that as well. A young player coming in that can be relied on by an NHL head coach. So I think the future is really bright. I think he'll probably get overdrafted next year. Like, he's actually going to get drafted. I mean, and I'm not sure we're there yet. I think this is it's a big guy, like, still so young. I think this could be a little bit slower than kind of what we're seeing here currently, but I think he could have a very big end of season here and really help the Flyers.
Yeah, I was trying to find that drowning kid meme, the one where the mom's playing with the one kid, like throwing them up in the air, and the other kid's like up front, just
Oh,
like completely drowning. That's Michkov, and the Tocchet is
yeah.
throwing Martone up in
Yeah.
the air. Yeah, I
Now
think
I'm got
that's
that visual. I'm talking like, yeah, let's go, Porter. Yeah. Guys, like, yeah, that's sad.
I think that's about where we're at this point. We'll see what happens for next year, but Cole Hudson, like I talked about him as the under the hood segment player yesterday. I'm pretty interested in what
Oh
Cole
yeah.
Hudson has brought to the table in his first 10 games in the bigs here. He's got 4 points in his last five, fifth in shots per 60, 11th individual expected goals for per 60 amongst all defensemen in those 5 games. Not getting a ton of minutes, but it has started to tick up over the last little bit, getting closer to 18, 19 minutes. And I mean, tell me if you think I'm wrong here, but I do think if he's good enough, and I mean, the highlight level plays that we've already seen from him in these 10 games tell me that he's good enough. If he can be consistent with it, is obviously another story. I think he's good enough to run a power play one. I think he's good enough to potentially just take that role directly away from Jacob Chikrin and be the dude as soon as next year. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I want to believe that, and I agree with your assessment that he is good enough to do that right now. But why would they? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the motivation is to do that for them. Like when you got a guy like Chikrin locked up, and that's what he does, right? Washington's power play. I'd have to look that
It's
up. I'm
pretty
not sure.
bad.
Yeah. So I mean, but a lot of that was the year with John Carlson as well. So what do we really have here? All that to say, this guy is insanely talented, and not just talented like a blue chipper defenseman. You're like, yeah, he's good offensively, but needs to be sheltered a little bit. I don't think Cole Hudson is that. I think he's very much like Lane Hudson. That's the way he kind of profiles to me. Like can walk the line like as good as anyone in the league right now, which is ridiculous. And like you said, those just some of those highlights right off the bat. It's like how's he doing that? And he was doing that at the lower level, and he's doing that here. So again, I think the future is really bright. It's just going to depend on what type of opportunity he receives and which way that Spencer Carberry wants to go with this power play, because that's really going to be key. That's what happened with Lane Hudson. He got put on power play one instead of Mike Matheson. And I think Jacob Chikrin is better than Mike Matheson on the power play. So, and what's going to happen with Ovechkin too on that power play? I mean, is he playing another year? I don't know. Like it's just interesting times. And I think it could be a little bit of a change, maybe a different looking power play there. So all that to say, love Cole Hudson. This guy's hopefully you have him in Dynasty. I have him in one of my Dynasty teams, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Right next up, Macklin Celebrini, 6 goals, 10 points casually in his last 5 games, over 21.5 minutes a night, 10th shots per 60, 45th individual expected goals for per 60, 64th and on ice expected goals for per 60, 106 points in 75 games on the year for Celebrini. What can we say that hasn't already been said? The question that was attached to this one was basically, how high are we taking him next year?
Ooh, I mean, I think he's a first rounder at this point.
Okay,
I think he's jumping up in
big
there, but
hot take there.
106. He's on a 116 point pace, my guy. I mean,
People are
what?
talking about him going fourth overall. That's the kind of conversation we're
Oh, I
having.
thought you were okay. Fourth. All right, that's all right. Hey, see what he does to me, folks. This is very hurtful. I mean, I'm just here to have a good time. This guy's tooting right in my face. Um, yeah, I'm not taking Macklin Celebrini at fourth. I don't like the team around him in terms of his ability to recreate this, although he has shown in spades that it doesn't matter. Like he's kind of the guy that can just do it. And I love the player. Fourth, no, I'm not taking him there. I'm taking him back half of the first round, most likely. But it could be one of those picks where, yeah, he ends up fourth in your rankings in your league. So I just think there's still a little bit of risk attached to drafting Celebrini that high when you have guys like Draisaitl, Kucherov, even Matthews, and just a bunch of others that I think are a little safer. But I don't know. Where are you at? Are you thinking about this guy at 4, or where do you think he's going to go?
I mean, if you look at APL average points per game, he is fourth right now. That's a fact.
Yeah.
So he's definitely in the conversation for me. I think the top three are pretty untouchable. You got McKinnon, you got Kucherov, you got McDavid. Honestly, you could order those however you want, and I wouldn't really fight you too much on them at this moment. I'll have my own rankings when we hit next year, but at this moment in time, like, take your pick. You're going to win your league if you have them. So obviously, that's not true because you can't have all three. Um, I do think I would take Draisaitl fourth, probably still, just because of the consistency factor that you get out of Draisaitl. Like Celebrini has had an unbelievable year. Some of his efficiency is also pretty unbelievable, and especially given the talent level around him, he might just be that good, which is the reason that you take him at fifth. But it might be a reason to not take him at fourth over a guy like Draisaitl. So I think that's probably where I'd be at this exact moment.
Over
But
Makar.
probably over Makar. Makar got caught this year by Bouchard. Got caught this year by Werenski as well in terms of points per game, like for fantasy purposes. So I think he's a bit more back in the tier. I'd still take him probably first of those three, but in terms of the actual fantasy points per game, I think he's closer to those guys than he has been in years past. So we'll see how it comes out, but I think probably fifth is where I'd have him if I had to draft today. We'll see. Werenski is next on the list. 1 assist in his last 5, 27 and a half minutes a night. I talked about him. His underlines are a bit down here. He's in the hundreds in shots per 60 and individual expected goals for per 60. That's not where he normally lives.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that maybe Werenski has just played, well, I mean, he quite literally has played more hockey than any other player in the last two years in terms of the average time on ice in the regular season. So is it just that it's catching up to him? Is it team effects? What's your take on where Werenski's at the moment?
That's a good question. I mean, how about the injury to Damon Severson? Like that, I think that, that's a comfort blanket for Zach Werenski, a guy he's played with quite a bit this year. But I haven't watched a lot of Columbus games recently, but the fact that Werenski's not shooting, that's abnormal, right? This is a guy that generates a ton of shots from the back end, and that's not happening. The team overall, it's not happening. So I'm wondering if there's something system wise, or maybe they're kind of looking to enter the zone a different way instead of having Werenski rush it in and just fire the puck off the rush, because that's something Werenski does so well, and he's really accurate with that. Like, you watch a Werenski highlight package, half of the goals that he scores are just him ripping in off the right side and just taking a shot off the rush and scoring. So I wonder if there's some fatigue. I wonder if there's a potential injury. I wonder if the pressure's getting to the team. Like that magic from the new coach worn off now, just like we talked about with Marchenko. And I think the team's just squeezing their stick a little bit. And, if they want success, they have to find a way to get Werenski back involved in generating offense. And it does make me wonder, with a guy like Damon Severson out of the lineup, what effect does that have on Werenski? Was he kind of the anchor and let Werenski roam around, and now Werenski has to play a little bit more conservatively, potentially, right? But it's rough too, because it's your playoffs, and this is a guy, for me, Werenski was a second rounder in a couple leagues that I got him, and he really didn't do a lot for me in the finals, which was really hard to take.
Yeah, I said my piece on Werenski. My personal take is I'm still rostering him for the rest of this season. For next season, I'm going to draft him as a top 3 defenseman. So nothing has really changed in my estimation of him. I'm just a little bit more concerned about how he's going to finish out this season based on this latest stretch. Okay, back to the comments. How would you rank J-Rob, Boldy, Caulfield, Natchez next draft season? Blake, let's start with you.
All right. Well, we'll just talk about points because none of these guys bang. I think, Caulfield in there. All right. I'm going to go J-Rob, No. Oh, this is rough. I'll go J-Rob first. Then I'll go. Okay. J-Rob, Natchez, Boldy, Caulfield. It's changed Caulfield and Boldy. Caulfield. Why did I say it like that? J-Rob, Natchez, Caulfield, Boldy. Final answer. I don't feel good about that. What do you have to say?
J-Rob, Natchez, Boldy, Caulfield for me. But okay. I also do not feel good about that.
Yeah, that's a killer's row right there.
Nate, thank you for sniping some preseason draft targets. Cutter, Terry, Will Smith, etc. I see you like under the hood darlings like Cutter, Snuggerud. Who else fits that mold for next year? Maybe someone like Martone. Martone, I think is in the conversation there for sure. I think we're not going to get a big enough sample size to be truly confident in that take, but it doesn't mean you can't take a flyer on a guy and get into some of that. I haven't sat down enough with my process to go through all the stats from this year to really solidify some players who I'm going to be higher on as kind of those sleeper level guys. But guys that I've highlighted this year, you mentioned a couple, but guys like Beckett Seneca, who's had just an unbelievable rookie year, gotten better over the course of the year. I think Logan Cooley, because of the injury, has flown under the radar a bit. He's gotten hot as of late, and I think that could set him up to have just a monstrous year next year if everything does break his way next year. Yeah, there are a few other names, but those are the kind of guys that are coming to mind for me at the moment. I think on the back end, I've talked about a few guys. Matthew Schaefer, I think, could be like a top 5 fantasy defenseman next year, no problem, and probably should be the next fantasy defenseman drafted after the elite guys are off the table, like the common every year elite guys.
Yep.
So, yeah, some things like that come to mind, but it'll definitely be something that we'll be talking about this offseason. Ricky, you joined in the stream late. Did you guys decide to talk about Rantanen? If not, can you look his stats up? We can definitely throw Rantanen in here. Rantanen is a player that I was pretty wrong about, I think. I was a little bit wrong on Dallas in general. It was a better environment than I thought. I was a little bit concerned about the coaching change. I didn't think Glenn Gulutzin was going to be a marked improvement over Pierre DeBoer there. And so I was concerned about that. Rantanen has 4 points in his last 5. His underlines look terrible, actually, the last little bit. So that's a little bit concerning for right now. He has been a bit of a weird case this year. 29 goal, 101 point pace in the 59 games he's played. So he has definitely been more of a facilitator for Dallas than he has in previous years for Colorado. The underlying's 75% IPP, totally in line with what Rantanen normally does. 16% shooting percentage in line, 15.6% on ice shooting percentage. That looks really high, but considering how good that power play is, I think that it's most likely going to be just as good next year. I don't really see a good reason why it shouldn't be. Anytime, if you've ever watched Dallas whip it around on the power play, they just look like they're on a different planet from every other team when they get on the power play. So, yeah, I'm pretty into what Mikko Rantanen's done this year based on what we've seen out of this Dallas team. I think, honestly, they could be even better at even strength in a best case scenario, and that would be pretty exciting. So, yeah, I've fully come around on Rantanen. Maybe I disrespected him a little bit, but most of it was like new team, new coaching situation, and I was not convinced that it was going to be a great coaching situation. So happy to be proven wrong there. All right, let's get back to the list here. We got to talk about Philip Broberg. I talked about Broberg yesterday. Been on a bit of a hot streak here. 5 points in his last 5, almost 23 minutes a night. He's been getting some power play one time, and usually that gets us pretty excited about new defensemen who are getting power play one time and producing. I'm still a little bit tepid on Broberg. I think he was cold for a long stretch even while he was getting this deployment. Now he's warmed up, and probably it just still averages out to kind of middle of the road, back end power play one defenseman for fantasy purposes. I don't know that there's a huge ceiling here with this player. What do you think, Blake?
Yeah, it's not. It kind of reminds me of like maybe this is a bad comp, but like a Owen Zellweger or something like that. You know what I mean? Like a guy that maybe has some good offensive skills, but he's never going to get. He might not get over the hump there. Like I'm throwing Owen Zellweger under the bus here.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that Broberg. I feel like St. Louis is going to go into next year kind of with a different plan. I don't think Broberg is going to be their number one guy. You know what I mean? I haven't gotten that feeling so far. That said, I mean, he's an excellent defenseman in transition. He's very fast. I think he for the Blues to pick him up for like an offer sheet, that's crazy. Like this is better than a replacement player in the NHL, right? He's excellent. He's giving them some good minutes, but yeah, I feel like this might be a back end, like a really like last couple picks in your fantasy draft next year. If you want to just take a ride with Broberg, we'll see where he's at if he's getting power play one. That said, he's still young too. Like he's turning 25 here this year, so this is a guy that I think ceiling for him is probably 45 to 55 points if everything goes right. You know what I mean? If he has power play one all year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do. I do think there is something to the fact that sometimes these defensemen do develop a little bit later. Like Josh Morrissey always comes to mind when we talk about things like this. Like Morrissey had like 5 seasons of doing absolutely nothing in the league before he just pops off for 70 points, and all of a sudden he's dropping 60-point seasons on the regular. So I do keep that in the back of my mind when discussing this, but nothing that we've seen concretely so far from Broberg has suggested to me that he is a special talent offensively. Matthew Wood was requested 3 assists in his last 5, just under 14 minutes average time on ice, in the 300s in shots per 60, individual expected goals for per 60, 249th in on ice expected goals for per 60. Wood has had some stretches like in these 65 games he's played this year. He's got 16 goals, which is a 20-goal pace, so he's done some stuff there. That being said, right now he's playing on the Tyson Jost, Luke Evangelista line, getting demoted down the lineup. I don't like what's happening right now, and that doesn't necessarily bode super well for his potential improvement in deployment next year. Where are you at, Blake?
Yeah, I mean, he's a good finisher. I think that he's played sheltered minutes, though, right? Like Nashville has not put him out there for a lot of these zone starts, so until they can do that consistently, like, yeah, we're looking at a player like, well, what is he pacing for? 37 points. It's nice. It's a nice rookie year for him. I could see him getting like 45 next year, right? Maybe 50. I mean, if he can, tack on a few more minutes there and maybe be relied on a little bit more in the defensive zone. But right now, he's just a guy that is good offensively, great finisher. But yeah, we're going to need to see more. We're going to need to see him kind of develop his defensive game.
Anton Frundell, 3 points in his last 5, just under 18 minutes average time on ice, 205th shots per 60, 234th individual expected goals for per 60, 91st in on ice expected goals for per 60. Frundell's been playing with Bertuzzi and Mikheyev most recently, and has been playing on that 5-forward power play that Chicago's been running the last little bit here. I think Frondell has a bright future ahead of him. It'll be interesting to see what the Blackhawks decide to do. I think next year, most likely scenario is that they try to line up these guys as their 3 centers and let Frondell play kind of a third center role. And so that would obviously hold him down a little bit. But if he's getting top power play, I could see something developing there.
Yep. It's a fun pick. It's a guy that I wasn't really thinking about a lot until I interviewed Byron Bader in the offseason. And this is a guy that he thought was going to really smash once he does make it to the NHL. And I think what we've seen so far on a really bad Chicago team, like this has been really, really encouraging. The fact that Jeff Blashill is throwing him out for big minutes and giving him that power play 1 treatment, it's really nice to see. And I don't see why that wouldn't be the case next season as well. So I think this will be a guy that I'm definitely in on as kind of a last pick or something like that, like an upside play, especially if he's getting power play 1. I think we'll be seeing Anton Frundell on some of our rosters.
All right. Next up, Erik Karlsson, 4 points in his last 5. Only 4 points in his last 5 for Erik Karlsson.
How dare you?
21.5 minutes average time on ice. 14th shots per 60, 6th individual expected goals for per 60, 7th on ice expected goals for per 60. After this latest hot stretch that he's been on, he is now sitting at a 72-point pace in the 73 games he's played this year. What do you think about Karlsson? How much of this recent run do you think is sustainable? Let's start with that 72-point pace that he's on. Do you think he could hit that again next year?
I mean, yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, yeah, it's a little hot. I would say like 60 to 65 is where I'm more comfortable with Karlsson, especially at his advanced age, right? The guy's literally 10 years younger than I am. This is terrible. And that's very hurtful, but we're going to rally here. But yeah, I mean, you've talked about Dan Muse a lot this year and the coaching job he's done there in Pittsburgh, and they just keep doing the thing. It's unbelievable. Geno Malkin's had an amazing year, like a truly amazing year. He's not just getting lucky. Like, yeah, he's been efficient, but he's also driving play at prime Geno Malkin levels, right? And now you got Erik Karlsson, who appears to be playing prime Erik Karlsson levels and doing the thing. And when he does that, he is one of, if not the best, pure offensive defenseman in the league. And yeah, I love to see it. He's really cooked on the power play. That's something that in the last 2 seasons in Pittsburgh has not been the case. So that Pittsburgh power play getting better under Dan Muse has been a huge feather in the cap there. And I don't see why that would change. You got guys on this team as well Anthony Mantha, you got Justin Brazeau, you got all like Tommy Novak. These guys are all having great seasons under Dan Muse. And I think Pittsburgh is a low key, interesting team to watch going into the playoffs here. Just their goaltending too makes no sense. It's Skinner and Art like Seelovs, and these guys are winning games and they're looking really good when they do it. So, anyways, all that to say, Erik Karlsson, I think I'm more like the 60 to 65 point pace, but rest of season here, I think it's balls to the wall, and we're going to see Pete Karlsson moving forward here.
Calling my shot here, Dan Muse will be the first NHL coach to actually use a tandem in the playoffs, and it'll work better than it should. Let's keep it going. Josh Norris next up. Actually, you know what? I have to talk more about Dan Muse.
Nice.
I'm pretty interested to go through the projection process on the Pittsburgh Penguins next year because all of their lower end guys, especially, have just been wildly efficient.
Yeah.
And that feels like it can't continue until you realize like the entire team has been this efficient. It's not just like one player really driving it. It's all players. Like the microstats really bear it out. They are doing all the things that lead to you being really efficient. And so I do think this is probably like peak form. Like this might be the best version of that. But at the same time, like Ben Kindell could be better next year.
Yeah.
Chinakhov in a full season next year. Like we could get better versions of some of their younger guys next year as well. That could go a long way towards, diffusing, I guess, any kind of natural regression that could come down from these heights that they've been at for basically the entire year. So I am really interested to run that. I do think I'll probably have them regressing a little bit in terms of the shooting percentage efficiency and some of the other stuff, just because it is pretty tough to replicate that year over year, and it's pretty tough to be good and lucky in multiple years in a row. So there's probably a little bit of regression that I'll bake into it, but it's not going to be as much as it is with other teams because I do think that this is a feature, not a bug, of the way they play. Josh Norris next up here, 3 assists in his last 5, does have a goal in the game here tonight against Tampa, and yeah, doing a little bit of stuff here. 170th shots per 60, 128 individual expected goals for per 60, 25th in on-ice expected goals for per 60. Where are we at with your boy Josh Norris, Blake?
I love him. I love Josh Norris. I feel decent about kind of hyping him up a little bit in the offseason here. Like I think I had him for 65 point pace. He's pacing for 59 right now. So just finish the season strong, Joshy boy, and we'll be looking good because I wasn't, calling him some superstar, but just the value was really good on Josh Norris. Obviously, that injury really kind of took the wind out of the sails there. But yeah, I think in terms of what I'd like to see with Norris, more ice time. It's a little bit surprising. And I mean, that Buffalo has not been, or Lindy Ruff has not been giving him a little bit more run here. I think that, yeah, they have a good top 9 there in Buffalo, but they've also been sagging a little bit. And I don't know. I'm not sure I understand why you wouldn't want Josh Norris out there. Like he's playing right now with the Dowg, Josh Doan, and then the Butler, Zach Benson. That's fine as long as he's power play 1. But I'd just like to see him get a little bit more time at even strength. Because he looked really good there. He was getting kind of a point per game, and now he's been kind of mired in a little bit of a funk. So I think it could unfortunately be that way towards the end of the year. I'm hoping it's not. But I think I have this weird feeling that Buffalo's going to kind of just back into the playoffs a little bit. They're already kind of they're confirmed, but I feel like they're letting off the gas a little bit.
Yeah, it seems like they're into this one with the Lightning, which makes sense. Like they're both there at the top of the standings. They want to, cement their playoff spot. They want to cement their home ice advantage. The Lightning are 2 points up on the Sabres, so it makes sense that they could get up for this game. But I would agree, in general, it does feel like they've been slowing down a little bit. They clinched the playoffs and lost that game immediately afterwards, which is not exactly what you want to see. In terms of Josh Norris, I think they just feel pretty comfortable rolling lines right now, and that's what they're doing. And it does just kind of take a little bit away from the high-end potential that we get there. And obviously Norris is not playing with Tage as much as he was earlier in the year anymore. Tage has really kind of taken over his own line with Krebs as his most common line mate, Alex Tuch as of late. Sometimes Josh Doan. But yeah, that's kind of my take on what has kind of not derailed, but just taken a bite out of Josh Norris's early season efficiency. Tomas Hertl, 15.5 minutes average time on ice, just 1 assist in his last 5 games. This has really been a stretch to forget for Tomas Hertl. You're hoping for the John Tortorella bounce here, and you're not getting it. Tomas Hertl has not scored in a month. That is wild stuff. And it's not for lack of trying. 51st shots per 60, 43rd individual expected goals for per 60, 41st and on ice expected goals for per 60. All of that is still there for Tomas Hertl, and pretty much has been like throughout this stretch. I will say he's playing with Riley Smith and Colton Sissons at even strength, so he is getting no benefit of line mates at this point in time. Last year's most common line mate, I believe, was Pavel Dorofeyev, which is obviously a step up from either of those players. So that could be part of it, but still on that top power play, that 5-4 power play still should be factoring into something there. He just hasn't been able to get it going. What do you think here, Blake? Do you think people should just drop Hertl at this point, even though the underlying suggests that he is just getting really unlucky right now?
I think you could. Yeah, if you need to drop Hertl, then by all means, right? If it doesn't make sense for your schedule and there's a guy you can get in for off nights. I dropped Hertl in a spot and I didn't look back, right? And he performed really well for me all year. But he was definitely a guy that felt the squeeze of the power play not performing, right? He was crushing on the power play. He's tied his power play points career high at 23. He's 1 goal away from tying his power play goal career high as well, with some games remaining. But yeah, it just seems like he's not really a factor at even strength, and that's gonna deflate his value. And then if the power play is not cooking, yeah, I think that's what we're seeing here. But like you said, the underlyings are still good. He's a great player. I hate the ice time a lot. It's really rough. So I think if you need to drop him, feel free, but just know that this is a guy that can get 2 goals and 1 assist in a game, in a championship game, as soon as next game here. So just something to consider.
All right, Rob Thomas, we kind of already talked about when we talked about Groot off the top, but worth mentioning Thomas, 5 goals, 10 points in his last 5 games. I was against an opponent. I was telling Blake this off air before we started in my Cats League where I lost my finals this week. The team that I played against had, let me just read off a few of the names here, but Rob Thomas was one of them. Zibanejad, Evgeny Malkin, 7 points. Jack Hughes, 9 points. Timo Meyer, Nico Hischier finally doing something with their life. JT Miller finally doing something with his life. Basically, all of his guys just absolutely popping off. So that was a tough way to go out. But Rob Thomas, what can you say? 20 minutes a night, 156 shots per 60, but 25th in individual expected goals for per 60, 7th in on ice expected goals for per 60. I heard Elliot Friedman floating that he thought, maybe the Blues just kind of put his name out there just to see if they could light a fire under his butt, and boy howdy, seems to have worked either way. So yeah, I think Rob Thomas getting back to where we thought he should be, seems to have even better chemistry with Holloway and Snuggerud than we had seen with basically anybody's ever played with before, and that should have you pretty excited about him going into next season. You got anything to add, Blake?
Yeah, just a very underrated player. And like you said, I love that individual expected goals per 60 number. I think you said it was 25th. Like, that means something when it's a guy like Robert Thomas, because he's a facilitator. He's a guy that's playing in all 3 zones. He's not like a Zach Hyman that's right around the net all the time and just tapping in rebounds and getting those high danger chances. Like, no, Robert Thomas is creating those chances himself. And he also has talented line mates giving him high danger passes. So it's a nice spot to be in. This guy's got an amazing contract for term. Why the hell would they want to get off Robert Thomas? Besides, unless he's like just a rabid Matchbox 20 fan, like, you need to keep this guy in your squad. But maybe he's, if Robert Thomas comes into the dressing room with one of those boom boxes and he's just ripping that Carlos Santana Robert Thomas song, like, yeah, that's what we call a cancer in the dressing room. You know what I'm talking about, Nate?
I think that'd be a great dressing room find.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we have to play on separate teams from now on. All right. That's no bueno.
All right, last player here, and then we'll get back to the comments to close it out. Seth Jarvis, 2 goals, 5 points in his last 5, 17 and a half minutes average time on ice, 34th shots per 60, 44th individual expected goals for per 60, 45th and on ice expected goals for per 60, 38 goal, 78 point pace in the 69 games he's played this year. Nice for Seth Jarvis. He's had a slightly better year, I guess, than I had projected for him. I had him for 35 goals and 71 points, so he's having a little bit better of a year than that. But honestly, I think this is pretty much where I expected Seth Jarvis to be. It makes sense that he could have a little bit better of a year. They added some talent to that top six. The power play has started to get going a little bit more as of late, I believe. So, yeah, I think it's kind of, this is who he is now, is my take on Seth Jarvis. Your thoughts, Blake?
Yeah, nothing really puzzling about Seth Jarvis. I think he has a little bit more to go. I could see him as a point per game player, but he's going to need to be a bit more, or he's going to need to be prioritized a little bit more. And now Carolina has this excellent second line, right? Taylor Hall, Logan Stankoven, and Jackson Blake, and they're really feeding those guys minutes. So, yeah, it might not be a situation where Jarvis can get up to like that 20-minute kind of treatment that would really elevate his play. But yeah, he's a great player. Actually, he's getting pretty good ice time. But yeah, he's just a great player, a guy that I think you target in the 5th or 6th round, and he's gonna deliver you a really good ROI on that.
All right. Let's close it out with some comments. Hey guys, can you throw Jack Quinn in there? Got him for a short term stream this week. I don't believe Quinn has any points in this game here tonight, but he is first in shots per 60, sixth in individual expected goals for per 60, and 31st in on ice expected goals for per 60 over the last 5 games. Yeah, I think he is showing us a little bit of something here. I'm going to be pretty interested in Jack Quinn. He's on the top power play now, which has obviously been helping him out. I think that you got to take notice when a player has an extended stretch like this where he really does feel like he's leveled up a bit. I'm not saying that this is necessarily who he is now and he's going to be a 70-point scorer next year, but I think it is worth noting when a player has a stretch like this. A lot of players, there are a lot of players who will score at a 52-point pace, which is where Jack Quinn is on the year. There are a lot of players who will score at a 52-point pace, but they will never touch a first in shots per 60 kind of rank in a 5-game stretch on the season. They'll get there in other ways and then they'll trend backwards from that. So, yeah, I think there's something here with Jack Quinn. I don't know if there's high end potential here, but it's definitely worth noting when a player has a stretch like this. What do you think, Blake?
Yep, I don't disagree with that. I love the shooting. That's excellent, and he's playing with the premier shooter in Tage, right? So it's yeah, and he's the one at the end of passes. So that says a lot. And like you said, yeah, that's a certain type of player that can kind of put up that amount of shots in that period of time. Just give him some more ice time, and we're loving life. This is just a player to watch. I'm sure we'll be talking about him in the offseason as kind of an underrated guy. If he gets power play one again next year, maybe we are looking at a 60 to 65 point Jack Quinn, and that'll play, right? That'll be a very valuable guy, maybe 30 goals even. I don't know. He's that kind of guy, and I think he has that potential.
Breadman says guys like Quinn, Chinikov, Alaf may fill the soggy boy mold like Cutter. Yeah, I think that they could be in that range. I think that Cutter, the reason I was so high on Cutter Gauthier, and you heard me talk about him in basically every offseason video all year last year, was because the numbers were that good. Like they were on another planet good, and he was just held down by the hellscape there in Anaheim under Greg
Greg
Cronin.
Cronin's thumb.
Yes. So I think it is a little different. I think you are talking about a different tier of player in Cutter Gauthier and what we were seeing in terms of the underlying stats last year versus what you might see from any of those three. But in general, yeah, I think there is a type of mold of player, and if they're able to generate shots on a consistent basis, that's the thing that I want to see now with Quinn. Like, he's got good numbers here, but they're not elite numbers on the season. This is a really good stretch for him. Is he actually building something here, or is it more of a hot stretch and he's a good player with great stretches rather than a great player with unbelievable stretches? Is kind of the realm that Cutter fit into a little bit more. I was wrong about Malkin and Stamkos, weren't we all? How does Benson look under the hood? Any expectations for him next year? Benson was one that we talked about a little bit people that we respect, like Dmitry Filipovich, was big into Zach Benson at the beginning of the year, thought he might take a big step this year, might be a natural complement to Tage Thompson at even strength. He did get power play time early in the year, did get that Tage Thompson exposure, didn't really do a whole lot with it, quite honestly, at least in terms of, putting up points on the scoreboard. I mean, 14 goal, 49 point pace, he's done enough to be relevant for his team, but he has not really been needed to be more than that. And they've had just a plethora of other guys ready and willing to jump up and take that spot on the top line and top power play at any given moment. And so if you're not separating from the crowd there in Buffalo, you are going to get left behind a little bit in terms of the deployment. I don't know if we just haven't seen it yet. It's worth noting Zach Benson came into the league as an 18-year-old. He's still very, very young. I think he's only 20 years old still. So it's definitely not to say that he couldn't take another step. I just don't think we've seen evidence of that step happening yet. What do you think, Blake?
Yeah, it's going to be a player that I'm still interested in. We talked about him in our players of interest, in the offseason here. He's just a guy that creates chaos, right? And I love that. He's a really good board battler. He's already good on the defensive side of the puck, and he's got some really good offensive sensibilities. But it's just like any young guy, he's going to need some good line mates, and he's going to need some opportunity. And with this team here, yeah, Buffalo has a lot of guys that need that same thing, just like Jack Quinn, right? Like Peyton Krebs. There's a bunch of players that kind of are all kind of vying for that opportunity. And it's going to be interesting to see who gets it. I do think Zach Benson could, break out if he is the one that gets sort of that 18-minute power play one treatment. But would I guess that it would happen? Probably not. I think Jack Quinn would probably be the guy that breaks out before Benson.
Right, let's comment. Ricky, I drafted Gauthier with my second to last pick, 15th round in a 16-team Cats League, and won all thanks to that Apples and Ginos endorsement. You love to see it. That's a good place to wrap this one up, I think. Worry not, fair listener or viewer, we are not going away for long. Blake and I will be back. We'll be breaking down our fantasy seasons, telling you the moves that we did that we wish we didn't do, and the moves that we did that actually resulted in some good stuff for us. Our best draft picks, how all of our fantasy teams did, basically. We'll be breaking that down, lessons learned, so that you don't have to make the mistakes that we did this year. So stay tuned for that. We'll be doing our way too early mock draft for next year. That's one that we always love doing immediately after this season ends. We do a way too early mock draft and basically try to figure out where we'd be drafting these players going into next year. So stuff like that definitely on the way from us here at Apples and Ginos. So it'll be a little less frequent from here on out, I will say, but we will definitely still be around. And don't be a stranger in the Discord. We're still in there and happy to talk shop with you anytime. That being said, that is all that we've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick and 18 Skaters. Many thanks to Matt Creamer for supplying music for the podcast. That's it, folks. Much love.